Hi, I'm video game composer Winifred Phillips, and today I'm going to be talking to you about creating the music of Wizardry, Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord, the Overworld. In Wizardry, you spend your time exploring two distinct worlds, the Overworld and the Underworld. The Overworld is a charming slice of medieval life, and the Underworld is a blood-soaked murder tomb. So let's now discuss the music of the Overworld. This is where the fun begins. The medieval period lasted from the late 400s AD to the mid-14th century. It's best known for the golden age of chivalry, the Crusades, feudalism, and the construction of huge Gothic cathedrals. This is the period of history that I turned to when I started researching musical styles for the Wizardry Overworld. Medieval music is an embarrassment of riches. It's sophisticated enough to be entertaining to our modern ears, particularly as you move into the late medieval period, but it's also got this alien vibe that makes it intriguing. Part of that weirdness rises from the emphasis on two intervals, the perfect fourth and the perfect fifth. In modern music, we lean on triads. We think they're beautiful. But medieval musicians thought triads were ugly. You could use them as passing tones, but if you're coming to a rest, it's on a lovely consonant fourth or fifth. Let's listen to how that principle applied to my music for Wizardry. Here's some of the music I composed for the training grounds, where you prepare your adventurers for combat. Since the training grounds would have been pretty physically active, I employed some late medieval dance rhythms. This one is inspired by the estampi, literally the stamp. I also used consistent fourths and fifths in the musical construction here, with thirds appearing only in passing. Aside from this fundamental difference of harmonic opinion, medieval musicians had a ton of awesome instruments to choose from. So let's take a look at a couple of instruments from the previous example. Since Viking musical influences were discussed at the beginning of the project, I investigated Nordic instruments and settled on two nice Viking-style choices that wouldn't have been out of place in the medieval period. The nyckelharpa, which is a keyed fiddle, and the talharpa, a bowed lyre. You just heard those two instruments prominently in the music of the training grounds. They worked exceedingly well together for drone-based compositions. Paired with the viola da gamba, these instruments firmly situated the score in an early historical period. So let's check out another example, the Adventurer's Inn, where party members get rest and manage their equipment. For this composition, I wanted to evoke the idea that other adventurers might be gathered around the hearth, swapping stories. So I decided to model the instrumentation and style around the troubadours of the 13th century, who were famous for setting gallant adventures into song. You'll notice the bowed lyres and keyed fiddles providing an underlying structure for this composition. In that example, you also heard some early percussion that I used for this project, which focused on several sizes of frame drum. Elsewhere in the score, I used pronounced tambourine rhythm, particularly in Gilgamesh's Tavern, which also included lots of wooden flutes for that charming pastoral flavor. While I was composing the music for Gilgamesh's Tavern, I studied sections from the medieval Codex Buranus for inspiration. It's a 12th to 13th century collection of songs for traveling minstrels, and there's this whole section dedicated just to drinking songs from the medieval period. So that was very inspiring. So let's listen to some of my tavern music, shall we? All right, we've talked about woodwind, percussion, and bowed strings. As far as plucked strings go, I had a ton of variety in my medieval arsenal, from dulcimers and zithers to gitterns, mandolins, and lutes. For instance, the music of Boltak's trading post included lots of lute and mandolin. The trading post is where our adventurers can both purchase powerful items and sell off what they've looted from the dungeon. I pictured an exotic marketplace full of rare and precious curiosities from around the world. During composition for this track, I spent time studying techniques from music contained in a medieval Tuscan manuscript. So a bit of Italian flavor definitely crept in, along with more worldly rhythms that would have been influenced by the Crusades. Let's get a taste of that. So this concludes our discussion of the music that represented medieval life in the Overworld of Wizardry Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord. Thanks for watching.